Now this truly is a beautiful 1 hour project for any beginner out there, but you don't have to be a beginner to make it. This is a beautiful skirt, so why not? Spring is here, so let's make ourselves something beautiful. Besides, it only has 3 seams, 2 pattern pieces, 2 simple measurements, and although it is a half a circle skirt, we're not going to be using any formulas with a pie, which is always a bonus, and I'll show you how it works, and it does work because I'll be making 2 of these, one for myself and one for my toddler, so that way you can see that you can use this method for any age and any size, and you can make it for anybody. So without any further ado, let's jump right into it. Now the first measurement that you're going to take is going to be the fullest part of your hips. That's right. Now, if your waist is bigger than your hips, then you will be taking your waist measurement. We want to ensure that our skirt will be able to go through all of those measurements because we don't have any zippers. We're going to be using elastic band. So we want to make sure that we take the biggest measurement that we have from where the skirt is going to sit to where the skirt is going to end. So in my case, those are going to be hips. So I'm going to measure the fullest part of my hips. Now, once you have that measurement, we're going to be using just 1/4 of that. Now, you can write that down if you'd like to. So the fullest measurement of my toddler where the skirt is going to sit is going to be 20 inches all around. So 1/4 of that is going to be 5 inches for my toddler. Now for me, 1/4 measurement of my hips, because that's the fullest part of my skirt, is going to be 9.5 inches. And those are the measurements that we're going to work with. Now, what you want to do is you want to take your pattern paper or your wrapping paper or newspaper, whatever you're working with, and you want to fold it on a 45-degree angle in half, like this, because that's what we're going to work with. Now, you want to take that 1/4 measurement that you just got and you want to add 1 inch. 1 inch is there for the ease, so that way you can get it on yourself without any problems whatsoever. Okay, so the 1/4 measurement for my toddler was 5 inches plus 1 inch. We're working with 6 inches over here. Now imagine that you're building 1/8 of a circle. So you're going to stretch 6 inches from this side to this side in a really nice curve, approximately, okay? And then you're going to mark a point on one of the sides. This will be the measure that we will use now to build out a really nice curved line. Next, you will measure the distance from this point all the way to the top of your triangle, and it measures 7 inches. And then you will take 7 inches like so all the way to the other side of your pattern paper. So this side and this side should match in length, and all of these, if you take a point from here all the way through here, should be exactly the same distance as these ones as well. Now let's talk about the length. The length we're going to do exactly the same way as we did this line. However, we will start from here because this is going to be our waist where our skirt is going to sit. So from here, you will drop it as long as you want it to be. So for my toddler, I will take the length of my skirt 13 inches. And we're going to do exactly the same. We will make sure that it's 13 inches all around. There we go. Here's a quick little tip. Now, ladies, if you do have a nice butt and the volume that you have in the back is quite bigger than what you have up front, then what you might experience with this kind of skirt, whether you buy it, whether you make it, doesn't matter. It's just how the skirt is because it's all even in all sides. Now, if you have a bit of a volume over here, you might experience that the skirt rides up and it's shorter in the back and longer in the front. In this case, what you can do is the front part of the skirt you will do exactly as we did in this tutorial. The back part of the skirt, the center, one side of it, you're going to lower by a couple of inches. If you're not sure, lower it by 3 or 4. You can always cut away. And then you can merge it back into the line of the circle. Okay, now that your pattern piece for the skirt is ready, you can cut these away, and that's it. This is done. Let's do a few markings on it. Now you will be cutting 2 of these pieces, and you can also cut just one as well if you place this side on the fold. Now I do like to have 2 seams because I do think that it adds symmetry. Besides, if you want to, you can put pockets in your side seams as well. However, it's your total personal preference. So you can cut either 2 or you can cut just 1 full piece by placing this side on the fold. And you will need to add seam allowance. You can either add 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 an inch. Again, depending on your personal preference. I like my seam allowances narrow, so I go for 1/4 of an inch when I cut my fabric. Okay, so now to make this super clear, you're going to take your fabric, you're going to fold it in half, or you don't have to fold it completely in half. If your skirt is only going to take, let's say, half of the width of your fabric, you can always fold it like this, but you should have a folded edge right over here. And if you're working with natural fibers such as linen, cotton blends, or anything like that, please pre-wash your fabric because it will shrink after you wash it. So you don't want your skirt to end up 1 or 2 sizes smaller from the moment you make it. Okay, so here I have my folded edge. My fabric is folded in half. Here's my pattern piece. Adding 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Again, you can add 1/2 an inch seam allowance if that's better for you. I am cutting out my pattern. I am adding 1/4 of an inch seam allowance everywhere, on top, on the sides, and on the bottom. All right, so these are your skirt pieces. You have 2 of these because we cut them together. So here's one, and here's another one. And now let's talk about drafting and cutting out the band. It's really easy. For the length of the waistband, you're going to use twice the measurement that you used to build the top of the skirt. So in my case, for my toddler, I was using 6 inches, so twice of that will be 12 inches. For the width of the waistband, you're going to take twice the width of the elastic that you're using. Remember, we will be adding extra seam allowance as we're cutting our waistband, so that way we can actually get the elastic in and the elastic can move inside the casing. Just like for my skirt pieces, I will cut 2 of these. If you would like, you can place it on the fold and just cut 1 piece, but since I'm going for 2 side seams on the skirt, I will go for 2 side seams on the waistband as well. Alright, so let's sew this together. All of the steps are going to apply and be exactly the same for the toddler size and for adult size. Follow this step by step. And the first thing that we need to do is we need to take both pieces of our skirt, put them right sides together, match them at the seams, and then pin them together. And as we're pinning, I want to give you a quick little tip here. If you feel that I'm going a little bit too fast for you and you would like to re-follow this step by step, you can always replay it, or if you click on the right bottom corner of your video player, there's a little gear icon. If you click on that one, you can either slow down or speed up the video for your convenience. Alrighty, now that it's done, let's move on to the sewing machine. Go ahead and start with the back stitch. Then, with a straight stitch following the seam allowance that you used to cut out the fabric, go ahead and sew both of the side seams with a straight stitch. After that is done, go ahead and press your side seams of the skirt, and then while we're at it, let's take a look at our waistband. Following exactly the same steps as we did for the side seams of the skirt, go ahead and place the waistband pieces right sides together and sew the short ends. The only thing to watch for is that on one side of the waistband, you're going to leave a small opening so that way you can put the elastic in as the waistband is attached. So make sure that you do that. Once your waistband side seams are done, go ahead and press it in half, just like you see me do on a screen. For this next step, I'm going to finish the raw edges of the insides of my skirt with a serger. If you don't have a serger, you don't have to do it with a serger. You can do it with a tightly spaced zigzag stitch on your sewing machine or an overcast stitch on your sewing machine as well. I've done that for years and years and years, so please don't feel intimidated by the fact that I'm using a serger here. Now, dear sewing friends, I will go ahead and show you all in one video how I hem a skirt like this. However, I do strongly suggest for you to do the following. Now, take the skirt that is unfinished at the hem and put it for a day in your closet on a hanger, or just put it on a dress form and let it hang. What it will do, it will allow for all the sides that are cut on a bias to drop. After the day is over, take the skirt out or take it off of the dress form and even out this hem of the skirt, and after that you'll be able to hem it. That will ensure that your skirt is going to be even on all sides. I will also serge the hem of the skirt so that way it does not unravel in the process of us working with it. Now, once that is done, the next step for us is to finish the hem with a sewing machine. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to take that hem, fold it to the wrong side, just for the amount of that serged or zigzag seam. You want to keep it narrow because we are going to be hemming a circle. Therefore, the thinner is the hem, the nicer it's going to lay without any puckers. And after that, you want to stitch it down with a straight stitch. Now for this part, take your time, go slow, and everything will be great. As you see, I'm not even using any pins because for me it's easier to work without pins. And if you're using a stable fabric like cotton blends, or linens, then it's really easy to do this part. Just take your time, slow and steady. Once you have completed stitching the hem of the skirt on a sewing machine, go ahead and give it a really good press with your iron. And here you can either choose to leave it as it is, or if you would like to, for an even neater finish, you can actually fold it onto itself one more time and do exactly the same thing one more time on a sewing machine. That will ensure that you won't be able to see any of the serged edges or zigzagged edges of the fabric at all. If you do choose to opt for a double folded edge like so, you want to make sure that you add ½ inch seam allowance instead of ¼ inch seam allowance like I did when you're cutting out your skirt, because instead of folding it onto itself just once, you will be doing it twice. For the next almost final step of the skirt, we will talk about the waistband. Now, the side seams of the skirt will match the side seams of the waistband, but to make sure that everything else matches, what you will need to do is fold your skirt in half, side seam to side seam, and mark center front and center back. Go ahead and do exactly the same on your waistband as well, and you can mark those points by making small little notches with your scissors. Then you will take your waistband and your skirts, you will put them right sides together, and you will match all 4 pointers. You will match 2 side seams and center front and center back. Go ahead and pin it in place, and then you will stitch it with a straight stitch following the seam allowance that you have. Once that is done, go ahead and serge that seam. Now, all you have left to do is 2 things. Number 1, go ahead and press the skirt and the waistband with the seam allowance facing down so that everything is nice and neat. And then you will need to insert the elastic. Once you have that done, go ahead and take the elastic that you have, put it through the opening of the waistband that you left unsewn, and thread it all the way through. Once you have it, the most common suggestion would be to cut the elastic a couple of inches shorter than your actual waist measurement, but I would suggest to put the skirt on yourself and then mark on the elastic where you want to cut it, because elastic can be different. Some are a little bit thicker and it really depends. So once you have that marking, we will need to stitch it down with a zigzag stitch a couple of times to really secure that seam. Now, if I were you, what I would do to prevent the elastic from twisting inside of the casing, I would put a straight stitch down one of the side seams of your skirt to make sure that the elastic really stays in place. And once that is done, all you have to do is just to hand sew the opening of the waistband shut. Now, how easy was that? That was pretty easy, right? I told you, if I can do it, then you can do it for sure. Now, I have another really cool, awesome tutorial, this time for a blouse, that I think you will like as well. So definitely click right over here, check it out, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!